New Canada citizenship rule to make biometrics mandatory in 2026 to 2027. Canada's immigration, social programs, and travel landscape are undergoing rapid change. From new citizenship requirements and rural immigration opportunities to critical updates on disability benefits and airline disruptions, these developments reflect the evolving challenges and opportunities shaping life in Canada. If you are interested in this topic, please pay attention and watch the video through to the end to get all the information. Please hit like and subscribe, and don't forget to push the notification bell for an upcoming video. Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada is set to introduce mandatory systematic biometric collection to grant citizenship, unlike the past, where biometrics were not generally required for citizenship though fingerprints were occasionally requested for security or identity checks. This policy will make biometrics mandatory for all applicants by 2027. In this video, we explore what this change entails and when this change will be implemented for your transformative step toward becoming a Canadian citizen. What's new? Canada Citizenship Rule for Biometrics. The proposed amendments to the citizenship regulations will mandate the collection and use of biometric information, specifically fingerprints and facial recognition data, for all citizenship grant applications. This initiative stems from legislative authorities granted in June 2023, allowing IRCC to integrate biometrics into the citizenship program for the first time as a standard requirement. The process will likely mirror existing biometric procedures for other immigration streams, where applicants visit Service Canada or designated private collection centers to submit their data. Biometrics involve capturing unique physical characteristics to confirm an individual's identity. For citizenship processing, this means ensuring the applicant is who they claim to be, reducing risks of fraud or misrepresentation. The system will cross-reference biometric data with national and international databases, such as those used by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police or Interpol, to verify identities. This is a significant departure from historical practices, where biometrics were not generally required for citizenship applications. According to IRCC's official resources, citizenship applicants were exempt from biometric collection, though fingerprints were occasionally requested in specific cases, such as security checks, criminal record verification, or to distinguish between applicants with similar names. The regulations will outline how biometrics are collected, stored, and used, with strict adherence to Canada's Privacy Act. This includes safeguards like data encryption, limited retention periods, and restricted access to authorized personnel. The initiative is not part of a formal bilateral or international regulatory agreement, meaning Canada is tailoring this approach to its needs, though it draws inspiration from global best practices in countries like the United States, Australia, and the United Kingdom, where biometrics are standard for immigration and citizenship processes. IRCC expects biometrics to streamline identity verification, eliminating manual checks that often delay applications. This is critical given Canada's high volume of citizenship applications, over 300,000 processed in 2024 alone, per IRCC data. The change also addresses gaps in the current system, where occasional fingerprint requests were inconsistent and lacked a standardized framework. When will this change be implemented? What happens next? This initiative is in the early stages of development, with pre-publication of the proposed amendments in the Canada Gazette, Part 1, targeted for 2026. This will include a public comment period, likely 30 days, allowing stakeholders, applicants, advocacy groups, immigration consultants, and community organizations to provide feedback. IRCC will use this input to refine the regulations, addressing concerns like cost, accessibility, and privacy. Final publication in the Canada Gazette, Part I is planned for 2027, after which the biometric requirement will take effect for all citizenship grant applications. Between now and 2026, IRCC will focus on developing infrastructure, such as expanding biometric collection centers across Canada, to support implementation. IRCC will also conduct internal assessments to determine fee structures, data storage protocols, and public communication strategies. Applicants and stakeholders should monitor IRCC's website for updates on implementation details, collection center locations, and consultation opportunities. Engaging in the 2026 comment period will be critical to shaping a policy that balances security with inclusivity. As Canada continues to welcome over 300,000 citizenship applicants annually, this change underscores its commitment to balancing openness with security, reinforcing its global reputation as a leader in immigration policy. What are the eligibility requirements for applying for Canadian citizenship? To apply for citizenship as an adult, 19 or older, you must be a permanent resident of Canada, have lived in Canada for at least 3 out of the last 5 years, 1,095 days, have filed your taxes, if required, pass a citizenship test, if aged 19 to 54, and prove language skills in English or French, if aged 19 to 54. You must also not have certain criminal convictions or be under a removal order. Minors under 19 have different requirements, often tied to a parent's status or application. How long does the Canadian citizenship application process take? Processing times vary, but as of 2025, it typically takes 12 to 18 months to process a complete adult citizenship application, assuming all documents are correct. Delays can occur due to incomplete applications, additional document requests, or security checks. You can check current processing times on the Government of Canada's Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada website. Can you keep your original citizenship when you become a Canadian citizen? Yes, Canada allows dual or multiple citizenships. You can retain your original citizenship unless your home country prohibits it. Check with your home country's government to confirm their rules, as some countries require you to renounce citizenship upon acquiring another. What is the citizenship test, and how can you prepare for it? The citizenship test is for applicants aged 19 to 54 and assesses knowledge of Canada's history, geography, government, and rights and responsibilities of citizenship. It's usually a 30-minute written test with 20 multiple-choice questions. You need 15 correct answers to pass. Canada increases scrutiny on cash job work experience for immigration. In the ever-evolving landscape of immigration applications, one topic has sparked heated debates and growing concerns: the use of cash salaries as proof of work experience. For years, cash payments have been a widely accepted method to demonstrate legitimate employment, especially in regions where cash-based transactions remain common. However, with the introduction of stricter regulations under the Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada guidelines, the scrutiny on cash-based remuneration has now intensified. Immigration authorities are now cracking down on fraudulent work experience claims, raising red flags about the authenticity of reference letters that cite cash salaries. This video dives deep into the complexities of using cash salaries for immigration purposes, offering critical insights, practical advice, and expert tips to ensure your application stands up to IRCC's rigorous standards in 2025. The historical acceptance of cash salaries. Cash salaries have long been a staple in various industries, particularly in small businesses, informal sectors, and regions where digital banking is less prevalent. From family-owned restaurants to freelance gigs, many workers receive their wages in cash, often accompanied by a reference letter from their employer to verify their employment history. Historically, immigration systems, including Canada's, have accepted these letters as valid proof of work experience, provided they meet specific criteria, such as detailing job duties, duration of employment, and salary details. The absence of explicit prohibitions in immigration law against cash-based remuneration has further reinforced its legitimacy. For applicants, this flexibility has been a lifeline, enabling them to showcase their professional experience even without formal payroll records. However, as immigration processes become more digitized and fraud detection mechanisms grow more sophisticated, the tide is turning. The IRCC's updated protocols have ushered in a new era of scrutiny, casting doubt on the reliability of cash salary claims. Increased IRCC scrutiny of cash jobs. IRCC has now increased scrutiny of cash jobs, which marks a significant shift in how immigration applications are evaluated. This step is to combat fraud and ensure transparency with the updated guidelines to prioritize verifiable documentation and robust evidence. The focus is now on identifying fake work experiences cases where applicants submit reference letters that falsely claim employment or exaggerate job roles to meet immigration criteria, such as those for express entry or provincial nominee programs. Cash salaries, while not explicitly disallowed, have come under the microscope due to their susceptibility to manipulation. Unlike bank statements, pay stubs, or tax records, cash payments are harder to verify, making them a potential loophole for fraudulent claims. Immigration officers are now trained to spot inconsistencies in applications, and reference letters stating cash salaries without corroborating evidence are increasingly likely to trigger a procedural fairness letter. A PFL is a formal request from IRCC for additional documentation or clarification, and receiving one can delay or even jeopardize your application. Why cash salaries are raising red flags? The primary concern with cash salaries lies in their lack of traceability. In a digital age where financial transactions are increasingly documented through bank transfers, electronic pay stubs, and tax filings, cash payments leave little to no paper trail. This makes it easier for unscrupulous applicants to fabricate work experience by obtaining reference letters from complicit employers or even fictitious companies. Such practices undermine the integrity of the immigration system, prompting IRCC to tighten its verification processes. For genuine applicants who have legitimately earned cash salaries, this heightened scrutiny can feel unfair. Many workers, particularly in developing countries or informal sectors, rely on cash payments due to cultural norms or limited access to banking systems. However, the burden of proof now rests heavily on applicants to demonstrate that their cash-based employment is legitimate. Failure to provide sufficient evidence can lead to accusations of misrepresentation, which carries severe consequences, including application refusal and potential bans from reapplying. Navigating the new reality: how to prove cash-based work experience. If you've been paid in cash and are preparing an immigration application, don't panic, but don't take it lightly either. Compliance is key, and with the right approach, you can strengthen your application to withstand IRCC's scrutiny. Here are actionable steps to ensure your cash salary claims are accepted as valid proof of work experience. Supplement with secondary documentation. Reference letters alone are no longer sufficient. Support your claims with additional evidence, such as tax records. If you've filed taxes on your cash earnings, provide copies of your tax returns or assessment notices. Bank statements. If you deposited your cash earnings into a bank account, submit statements showing regular deposits that align with your employment period. Affidavits from colleagues or supervisors. Sworn statements from coworkers or managers can corroborate your employment history. Contracts or appointment letters. Written agreements detailing your job role, salary, and employment duration add credibility. Ensure reference letters are detailed and verifiable. Your employer's reference letter should include your job title and detailed duties, dates of employment, start and end dates, salary amount and payment method, e.g., cash, contact information for verification, including the employer's phone number and email address. The letter should be on official company letterhead and signed by an authorized representative. Provide context for cash payments. If cash payments are common in your industry or region, include a brief explanation in your application. For example, you might note that small businesses in your area typically pay in cash due to limited banking infrastructure. Maintain consistency across documents. Ensure that all documents, reference letters, tax records, and affidavits align in terms of dates, job duties, and salary amounts. Discrepancies can trigger a PFL or outright refusal. Consult an immigration professional. An experienced immigration consultant or lawyer can review your application for potential red flags and help you compile a robust evidence package. The consequences of getting it wrong. Failing to substantiate your cash salary claims can have serious repercussions. If IRCC suspects misrepresentation, you may receive a PFL, giving you an opportunity to clarify your case. However, if your response is deemed inadequate, your application could be refused. In severe cases, misrepresentation can lead to a 5-year ban from applying for Canadian immigration, derailing your plans and tarnishing your record. Moreover, the emotional and financial toll of a refused application can be significant. The time, effort, and money invested in preparing your application, along with the stress of navigating a PFL, can take a heavy toll. That's why absolute compliance with IRCC's requirements is non-negotiable. Don't let cash salaries derail your Canadian dream. Using cash salaries as proof of work experience is still possible in 2025, but it requires careful planning and robust documentation. With IRCC is now raising the bar for verification, applicants must go the extra mile to prove the legitimacy of their employment history. By supplementing reference letters with secondary evidence, maintaining consistency, and seeking professional guidance, you can navigate the complexities of the immigration process with confidence. New Canada CDB payment for August 2025 coming soon. The Canada Disability Benefit is quickly establishing itself as one of the most notable social support programs in recent years. Introduced with the goal of reducing poverty among Canadians living with disabilities, the CDB officially launched in July 2025 after a long period of public consultation, parliamentary debate, and collaboration with disability advocacy organizations. Designed as a monthly financial payment, the program focuses on helping adults between the ages of 18 and 64 who qualify for the disability tax credit. With the next round of payments set to arrive on August 21, 2025, there is growing interest in understanding how the program works, who can apply, and how much support recipients can expect to receive. Purpose of the Canada Disability Benefit. At its core, the CDB is meant to ease the financial burdens that disproportionately affect people living with disabilities. Everyday living often comes with added costs such as mobility aids, specialized health equipment, home accessibility modifications, or personal care services. For many households, these expenses push budgets to the limit. The CDB helps offset some of these costs while also recognizing the systemic financial disadvantages disabled individuals face. Beyond direct financial aid, the program symbolizes the federal government's acknowledgement of disability-related inequities and its commitment to improving accessibility and affordability in a period marked by inflation and rising living costs. Development and launch of the program. The CDB has been years in the making. Initially proposed by the Trudeau government in 2020, the program underwent extensive reviews, committee hearings, and consultations with advocacy groups before reaching its final form. Its official introduction in July 2025 was greeted with cautious optimism. Advocates have praised it as a landmark initiative capable of lifting thousands out of poverty and restoring financial dignity to many Canadians. At the same time, critics have expressed concerns that the income-tested design could exclude families who still face significant disability-related expenses but do not meet the strict eligibility thresholds. Despite the debate, the launch represents a critical step toward closing gaps in Canada's social safety net. Payment schedule and retroactive support. The Canada Disability Benefit is issued consistently on the third Thursday of every month. The inaugural payments were made on July 17, 2025, and the next deposits are scheduled for August 21. Applicants who were approved in time for July received their first benefit right away, while others will see their initial installment in August, possibly including retroactive payments covering July. Retroactive support is available for up to 2 years from the program's launch, as long as the applicant met all requirements during that period. This ensures fairness for individuals who experience delays in the application process but were otherwise eligible from the start. Eligibility requirements. Eligibility for the CDB is carefully structured to prioritize those most in need. Applicants must be between 18 and 64 years of age, since the program is designed for working-age adults who are not yet eligible for old age security or the guaranteed income supplement. Claimants must be Canadian residents for tax purposes and must have filed a 2024 tax return, even if no income was earned. A crucial prerequisite is approval for the disability tax credit. Obtaining this requires medical certification of a severe and prolonged impairment, documented on Form T-2201 and reviewed by the Canada Revenue Agency. Approval can take several weeks, making it a key first step for anyone interested in accessing the CDB. Residency and immigration status also matter. Citizens, permanent residents, refugees, and individuals registered under the Indian Act are eligible. Temporary residents may qualify if they have lived in Canada for at least 18 months. However, benefits are suspended for individuals incarcerated for 2 years or more, apart from the first and last months of their sentence. Benefit amounts and income thresholds. The maximum benefit is $200 per month, or $2,400 annually. Payments are indexed to inflation, ensuring future adjustments keep pace with cost of living changes. For single recipients, the full $200 monthly payment is available if annual income is below $23,000, with an exemption allowing up to $10,000 of employment earnings without penalty. In effect, individuals earning up to $33,000 may still receive the full benefit. Beyond this threshold, the payment decreases by 20 cents for every extra dollar earned, phasing out entirely once income reaches $45,000. For couples, the rules differ slightly. If only one partner qualifies, the full amount is available for household incomes under $32,500, gradually reducing and ending at $58,500. If both partners qualify, each can receive $200 per month, provided the combined income stays under $32,500. Payments decline more slowly in this case by 10 cents per extra dollar earned and phase out fully at $70,500. When annual entitlement is very small, specifically $240 or less, it is issued as a lump sum payment instead of monthly installments. Application process. Applying for the CDB is relatively straightforward but requires preparation. Applicants must first secure approval for the disability tax credit. From there, they need to gather documents such as a social insurance number, proof of status in Canada, a 2024 notice of assessment, and direct deposit details. Applications can be submitted online through Service Canada's portal, over the phone, in person at a Service Canada office, or by mailing a paper application. Processing usually takes about 28 days, though more complex applications such as those involving legal representatives may take up to 49 days. Once approved, payments begin the following month on the scheduled date, with retroactive amounts included if applicable. Outlook and importance of the program. The Canada Disability Benefit marks a milestone in Canadian social policy. While some question whether $200 a month is sufficient to address the real costs of living with a disability, even modest support can make a noticeable difference for many households. The program provides greater stability, reduces financial stress, and helps recipients afford essential goods and services. As more Canadians begin receiving payments, attention will shift toward whether the program can expand and adapt to meet long-term needs. Air Canada strike latest updates. The Air Canada strike of August 2025 has swiftly developed into one of the most severe labor disputes in Canadian aviation history. What initially began as a dispute over contract negotiations between Air Canada and the Canadian Union of Public Employees has snowballed into a nationwide crisis that reverberates well beyond airports. Hundreds of thousands of travelers, both domestic and international, have been caught in the turmoil. Business meetings, family vacations, medical trips, and student travel have all been disrupted. The strike has raised broader questions about the balance between labor rights and passenger protections, the role of government intervention, and the financial stability of Canada's largest airline in a competitive global aviation market. Why the strike happened? At the core of the conflict lie disagreements over wages, benefits, and working conditions. COOP represents more than 10,000 flight attendants at Air Canada and its low-cost subsidiary Rouge, and for 8 months, the union had been engaged in contract talks with Air Canada's management. Union demands included higher wages to match those of U.S. carriers and Canadian competitors, inflation protections to maintain purchasing power, predictable schedules to ensure a work-life balance, and stronger health and retirement benefits. Air Canada's response emphasized that it had already presented what it considered a competitive package. Management pointed to rising fuel costs, stiff competition from WestJet and Porter, and lingering financial scars from the COVID-19 pandemic as reasons why they could not meet COOP's full demands. The standoff escalated dramatically when 99.7% of COOP members voted to strike, a level of solidarity rarely seen in Canadian labor disputes. Following a 72-hour strike notice issued on August 13, Air Canada responded with a lockout, halting operations to avoid the chaos of partial staffing. By August 16, flight attendants officially walked off the job, grounding nearly Air Canada's entire fleet. Scale of the disruption. The impact was immediate and far-reaching. Flights cancelled, up to 600 daily, affecting 86% of Air Canada's mainline schedule and 96% of Rouge operations. Passengers affected, roughly 130,000 travelers per day, were stranded at major airports like Toronto Pearson, Vancouver International, and Montreal Trudeau. International fallout. Major routes to London, Frankfurt, New York, Los Angeles, and Asian hubs such as Tokyo and Hong Kong were suspended, stranding global travelers. Airports in chaos. Long queues at rebooking counters, mass cancellations, and protests created scenes of anger, confusion, and in some cases, outright confrontation between staff and passengers. While regional operations by Air Canada Express, operated by Jazz and other partners, continued, they represented only a fraction of Air Canada's vast global network. Cargo operations were maintained but at a much reduced scale, adding supply chain concerns to the crisis. Government steps in. Given the seriousness of the crisis, the federal government intervened quickly. On August 16, Jobs Minister Patty Hajdu announced binding arbitration, ordering attendants back to work while negotiations continued under government supervision. Union reaction. COOP denounced the intervention as heavy-handed, accusing Ottawa of undermining workers' right to strike. Union leaders signaled defiance, with some attendants vowing to continue job actions in protest. Public debate. The government's move split opinion. Some citizens supported the intervention, arguing that the economic damage and passenger suffering justified decisive action. Others believed the federal government trampled on fundamental labor rights and set a dangerous precedent. Economic stakes. Analysts estimated the strike was costing Air Canada nearly $300 million Canadian dollars in only 3 days, with ripple effects across the tourism industry, hotels, conferences, and local economies reliant on air travel. How long could the strike last? Predicting the duration of such disputes is always difficult, but analysts outlined several scenarios. Optimistic, a resolution within 3 to 7 days if binding arbitration yields a quick compromise. Realistic, more likely, the dispute could drag on for 10 to 14 days, in line with past Canadian airline strikes. Pessimistic, if COOP resists arbitration and escalates industrial action, the dispute could last 2 to 4 weeks or longer. Even after an agreement, Air Canada admitted it would take up to a week to fully restart operations, given the complexities of scheduling, repositioning aircraft, and reassigning crews. This means that the effects of the strike could be felt well beyond its official conclusion. Historical parallels. Air Canada has a long history of contentious labor disputes, and few have ended quickly. 1985 flight attendants strike lasted 2 weeks. 1998 pilots strike lasted 13 days before the government imposed back-to-work legislation. 2011 and 2012 strikes each lasted between 3 and 10 days, but both were cut short by Ottawa's intervention. 2019 COOP dispute nearly escalated into a strike but was resolved after months of heated negotiations. The overwhelming 99.7% strike approval rate in 2025 suggests COOP members are prepared for one of the longest and hardest-fought battles in the airline's history. What passengers need to know. Air Canada has announced a travel policy to mitigate the impact on passengers. Tickets booked before August 14 can be changed free of charge for travel between August 21 and September 12. Full refunds are available for flights cancelled on August 16 to 17. Non-refundable fares may be converted into credits in Air Canada Wallet. Some passengers may be rerouted on partner airlines such as United, though availability remains very limited. Under the Air Passenger Protection Regulations, travelers are entitled to compensation up to $1,000 Canadian plus expenses for cancellations and long delays. On US-bound routes, Department of Transportation rules mandate full refunds for cancelled flights. Alternatives for travelers. For those stranded or facing cancelled trips, options include other airlines, WestJet, Porter, and international carriers such as United, Delta, Lufthansa, and British Airways. Ground transport, via rail and intercity buses provide alternatives for shorter domestic routes. Travel insurance, policies from Allianz, Tugo, and others may cover disruption costs, depending on the fine print. Flexibility. Travel experts suggest postponing trips until late August or September, when operations are likely to stabilize. Broader implications. This strike is more than a simple contract dispute, it is a stress test for the resilience of Canadian aviation. For Air Canada, prolonged disruption threatens to erode customer loyalty, drive travelers to competitors, and jeopardize its fragile post-pandemic recovery. For workers, COOP members view this as a fight for fairness, dignity, and the preservation of aviation careers as sustainable professions. For the government, the dispute highlights the difficulty of balancing economic stability with respect for labor rights. Too much intervention risks alienating unions, while too little risks economic damage. Regions respond to great demand for Canada's new rural pathway to permanent residence. Canada's new rural pathway to permanent residence has been met with incredible demand by employers and foreign nationals in participating regions. Local economic development organizations participating in the Rural Community Immigration Pilot have responded with measures such as tightening eligibility criteria for employers and/or imposing caps or moratoria on intake. Regions making changes to address excess demand include North Okanagan-Shuswap, Claresholm, and Peace-Liard. The table below summarizes major changes as of the time of writing. The IRCC is an employer-driven pathway to permanent residence in Canada. To be eligible, a foreign national must have a job offer from a designated employer within the community, and the job offer must be endorsed by the local economic development organization. How are communities dealing with demand? North Okanagan-Shuswap. The North Okanagan-Shuswap IRCC saw great demand in its first intake, receiving hundreds of applications beyond its capacity. In response, it cancelled the July 17 intake to address the backlog. There are 3 more intake windows scheduled for the remainder of 2025. The community is also no longer accepting applications from fast food, NAIC 722512, and gas stations, NAIC 4471, employers due to overwhelming demand and a limited number of recommendations. Peace-Liard. Peace-Liard, also in British Columbia, reached its capacity for employer designation applications in July. The intake for employer designations will resume in November 2025. The region has also been seeing immense demand during its candidate intake. During the first IRCC candidate intake on August 1, Peace-Liard received the maximum number of applications in under 10 minutes. Claresholm. Claresholm, a community in southern Alberta, has announced that it will no longer be accepting or approving employer designation applications from employers in the fast food subsector. This update was made effective July 24, 2025, and is currently in place at the time of writing. Thunder Bay. Thunder Bay, the largest city in northwestern Ontario, has paused recommendation applications in the sales and service sector for the month of August. The Thunder Bay Community Economic Development Commission plans to reassess before informing the public whether it will open for the month of September. Sault Ste. Marie. The community of Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, has reached its cap for dine-in restaurants, and will no longer be designating any requests from dine-in employers submitted after May 8. The Sault has also reached its cap of designating employers that are hiring security supervisors as of June 3. What is the RCIP? The RCIP is an employer-led immigration program that allows regional economic development organizations to recommend foreign nationals for permanent residence based on local labor needs. There are 14 communities in total participating in the RCIP. Designated employers in each community can offer qualifying jobs to eligible candidates, who must then apply for a community recommendation. Once endorsed, a candidate can submit their permanent residence application to Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada. They may also be eligible for a temporary work permit while their PR application is being processed. What are immigration pilots? Immigration pilot programs are temporary pathways to permanent residence. They are run by the federal government, and typically run for up to 5 years before expiring. Successful pilots can lead to the development of permanent programs. The Atlantic Immigration Program came out of a successful pilot. As pilots are small programs, it is common for them to see far more demand than available spots each year. For example, the home care worker pilots which launched this year hit their application caps within hours of opening on March 31. The federal government generally designs pilots to address specific labor market needs that are not being addressed by existing immigration programs. As Canada continues to balance policy reforms with economic and social needs, these updates highlight both the hurdles and the hopes facing newcomers, residents, and travelers alike. The months ahead will show how these changes reshape Canada's path forward. That is all for today, in this video. What are your thoughts on this? Please let us know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching the entire video. Hopefully, the information is useful to you. See you later, in the next video. Till then, take care.